Hello, hello.
How's it going, Ashlee?
It's going well. How's it going with you?
It's going well. Just getting a few last little tech things set up for myself here.
Understandable. I'm really excited for this one. I'm excited to talk about it because we've become such a digital world and it's such a different communication style,
So
such a
true.
different skill set to learn. There's a lot to cover. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm seeing people trickling in pretty steady. So while you guys are trickling in, just take a moment to yourself to be centered, be present. This is an hour for you, an hour to grow your skills, an hour to focus on your growth and development. It could be really great. Take a mindful moment for yourself, collect pen and paper, light a candle, whatever you would like to do. I've got my essential oils going because I'd love to have something nice smelling while we're doing these webinars. Make sure you have your water, anything that you may need. It's always fun seeing the names pop up as people come in. New names, familiar names, new good conglomerate.
It's great.
How's your morning been, Rowan?
It's going well. It's a good morning. Yeah. We've been having some mild weather here in Florida, so I'm appreciating that. Not too hot yet.
Yeah, Texas has decided to borrow cold weather. It was 40 degrees this morning, and I don't do cold and rainy. But that's okay. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, a little reminder we have seasons.
I know. Well, I think we've got the bulk of people have made it in. We might still have a few people joining us, and that's okay. They can hop right in, but I think I'm ready to get started if you are.
Great, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's talk all about fostering connection in a digital world, coaching with confidence in virtual spaces. So let's dive right in. Who are we? You've heard us just sit here and chat. Let me make sure that we introduce ourselves. My name is Ashlee Honeycutt. I am the Director of Health Coaching Operations here at YourCoach.Health, as well as a board-certified health and wellness coach myself. And I am joined by Rowan.
Hello, I'm Rowan Lischerelli. I'm also a board-certified health coach, and I am the health coach coordinator here at YourCoach.
Hey. And what is YourCoach, right? You just heard us both say we are from YourCoach, but I'd love to give a brief introduction to YourCoach for those of you that don't know us yet. We are an end-to-end HIPAA-compliant practice management platform where you have all of the tools that you need to practice with your own clients in one space. That's chat, video sessions, session notes, the library, all the things to support and level up your practice. We also offer these great webinars and more, and you get topic experts to business coaches to health and wellness coaches like ourselves, and you get access to tools and resources, the wonderful coaching community when you're on our platform. It's a place where you can connect and collaborate with fellow health and wellness coaches, and so much more. We could probably talk about this in an entire webinar, but the one thing that always gets coaches excited is we also provide new client opportunities, which help to fill up your digital wallet by connecting our validated and our contracted coaches with clients that are ready to be coached. So that's really neat. We have two different sides, and we're able to do this as the only operating system for behavior change powered by health and wellness coaches. We work tirelessly to forge partnerships with organizations across all industries, communicating the unmatched value that health coaching can offer their clients, members, and talent. We all know the power of health coaching, and it is such an honor and privilege to be able to bring that to new spaces. And we match those participating individuals that are ready for coaching with the validated and credentialed coaches, just like you, who are actively practicing on our YourCoach platform, providing that hands-on support as they grow through their individualized coaching programs. So through those new partnerships, we're creating the health coaching ecosystem that's built to empower health coaches to deliver their services to even more individuals across the globe. We're introducing health coaching to more individuals, organizations, and communities than ever before, championing real health change through verified science-backed methodologies. So especially as we see the healthcare system transforming rapidly to a well-care system, health coaches are spearheading that paradigm shift to fulfill the growing demand for a holistic approach to health. That's where we factor in all those things like the physical, the mental, the emotional, the psychosocial layers, everything. And that's exactly our mission here at YourCoach.Health. And that's by the year 2030 for the projected 8.5 billion people in the world to have access to health coaches, creating more happy and healthy humans. And that mission gets me really excited. So let's talk about how we can do that. We're going to dive right into fostering that connection in a digital world. So I think you're going to lead us through something here.
Sure, absolutely. I invite everyone to just take 1 minute to grab a pen and grab some paper. And if you would like, just take a moment to think about what this means. What's the feeling you want to create for your client when they sign up into a live digital session? Consider creating a safe space, an engaging space, and an environment where people feel open to communicate with you. Just take a moment to write down all of the thoughts, brainstorm it away, anything that comes up around what that means to you regarding tech, lighting, presence, and the general feeling that you want your client to have.
Yes. And if you don't have a pen or paper close to you, you can make these mental notes too. I think it's great just to reflect on that. We'll take just about 10 or 15.
And you can keep considering that as I just start to move on a little into our presentation today, talking about rapport. This is going to be the foundational principle of our entire presentation. What is rapport? Rapport is a coaching technique, and it's a skill, it's a value, it's multiple things that builds trust between yourself and your client. So rapport is important for health and wellness, and you can't emphasize how important it really is. It helps us to create a trusting and positive relationship between the coach and the client. And a good rapport can help the client feel more comfortable discussing personal and sensitive information, and it can make it easier for the coach to provide that effective guidance and support. When a coach has established rapport with their client, we've all done it, and we've done it effectively and sometimes maybe not so effectively. When it's effective, that client is more likely to be successful in helping, and the client is more likely to be successful, but the coach is also more likely to be successful in helping the client achieve that health and wellness goal. So if trust isn't present, your client will resist change and they won't get the results they want. If rapport isn't present, sometimes your client's armor and defenses could go up. They could get anxious instead of coming down. And rapport is that first essential step in coaching. So remember that without rapport, you have no sustainable coaching relationship. To ensure that you spend, it's important to ensure that you spend as long as you can, as long as you need to set that relationship up to develop rapport right from the get-go. So often we're focused on achieving results and we want to dive right into the goals, but it's ultimately truly this most sustainable way to do things is to get the results that we're both looking for if that rapport is developed and established. So let's talk about rapport a little bit more. What are the benefits to the client? It's just so important, and let's explore some of those and consider some of those benefits. When the health coach is interested in building rapport, the client can feel really empowered. It increases their self-efficacy. And when an empowered client has rapport with their coach, the client feels more confident. They try new things or they suggest new ideas and they feel supported in those new endeavors. They trust their coach and the coaching process. And through that, they feel empowered. And then the client feels a sense of safety. They can settle into this coaching relationship and process in a way that feels totally natural and really secure. A client can also, with a really well-established rapport, feel like their opinions and desires matter. The coach creates this safe environment, and then the client is empowered to be authentic, express their opinions, what they desire, and the possibilities of what that could lead to. It improves this follow-through with commitments, and because it honors their true self, and a lot of these ideas come from those inner desires, they're more likely to follow through with their goals and commitments, as we've all seen happen in the past. The client can also feel more motivated when they have really strong rapport. They feel those foundations are set with the coach, built on empowered, authentic, and genuine connection. And then this motivates them as they take their first steps, which can be a little intimidating at first. So clients also have this safe space where individual experiences are acknowledged and considered throughout the support process. And that allows for the space in that coaching relationship to uniquely individualize and support that client through their journey and on their path. And coaches, we're specifically trained to support this personal relationship and understand the client from where they're coming from. So ultimately, clients with whom health coaches and other health professionals have built a rapport have incredibly improved health outcomes. And all of these outcomes benefit the client. This isn't one-sided though. It also benefits the coach. And Ashlee's going to share with us some of the ways that rapport really helps to establish the benefits for the health coach.
Yeah, there are so many benefits that come to us through this rapport building process too. And in a simple term, it helps us to do our job better. And most of us get so much fulfillment out of our job that that's a personal boost as well. But it makes things easier for us. We want things to be efficient and easy, right? So some of those benefits to the coach are that you can receive detailed information about a person's health and wellness history, including elements that are often overlooked or that they don't include on those intake forms and questionnaires, which can foster an even more effective whole client approach. Simply put, we can do our jobs most effectively and efficiently when clients trust us enough to share their unique stories and healthy lifestyle goals. We can also gain insight into how a client truly feels about the guidance and the suggestions that we might provide. We can have some of the best resources available to share and the tools to assist the client, but only the client knows what is best for them, right? Having that rapport keeps the communication highway open, and it allows the client to give us feedback to help us navigate those next steps, which also allows us to get genuine feedback about the coaching process. We all have room to grow, right? And that best feedback comes from our clients, and the communication that they provide to us is gold. It gives us the opportunity to reflect and grow in our coaching skills. Through that, it also allows us to gain experience with complex client realities. When a client feels connected to their coach, the safe space that we've created allows for them to share the many nuances and complex realities that they may be navigating. And this gives us the opportunity to improve our people skills, including building empathy. And when clients feel comfortable sharing those complex realities, we become more confident and comfortable utilizing those several spokes within our wheel of emotions to support, hold, and give space for those realities. And of course, through it all, if we look at the very bottom line, improved client retention rates. It's good for the coach, the client outcomes, and the coach's business. It's easier on us as coaches to retain clients than to get new ones a lot of the times. And when we're on a mission to bring health coaching to the world's population, to do that, we have to have clients who are excited about the process and they're receiving those positive outcomes. So that rapport is such a huge piece of that. But it can be a little tough, can't it?
It can, and especially through a screen, right? Like this can be challenging. So first I want to dive in a little bit to body language. It's really tough to build rapport digitally for several reasons. And body language has been around long before people had words to express themselves. It's how we can tell our friends from our enemies. We know someone is happy or sad, and it's how we build trust and connection almost on an intuitive level. My background is in American Sign Language, and as an ASL interpreter, I learned that 80% of communication is body language, not just the signs or the words that we use to communicate. So video chatting makes it incredibly hard to have real human connection. It can diminish how much we communicate with our body language. And in normal face-to-face interactions, we see people and we make direct eye contact, but with video calls, it's a lot harder. Hand gestures and micro expressions and our lower body language all are lost to this tiny little square that we fit into. Not to mention many cues that only last fractions of a second, and it's really difficult to pick up in real life, almost impossible to pick up with lag time and bad video quality and things like that. So the second you enter a video call, you enter like into a constructed awkwardness bubble. And that video call that we engage in with our clients is an artificial creation, and we might not be able to read much body language in video calls. The thing with that all said is, though, that like we can work with this and we can do a lot. We'll share a lot of tips and tricks on how to make that happen.
Yeah, that's the good news. So we're getting some of the challenges here, but the good news is there are ways that we can combat that. Another thing that can be a challenge is you can feel more negative emotions on video calls than normally. So maybe you've had this experience, I know I have, where you get off of a video call and you feel a little bit sadder or more frustrated or just generally kind of negative and down. And for every one person that loves mirrors, there's going to be 9 others who don't, right? And we don't enjoy just sitting and watching ourselves. And Studies show that viewing our own negative facial expressions, such as frustration, worry, confusion, even when we're concentrating, if the sides of our mouths turn down, it can lead us to experience more intense emotions compared to if we were to view those exact same facial expressions in someone else. So these video calls create a unique feedback loop where we just see ourselves as we communicate. And that doesn't happen in real life, right? If you and I, Rowan, were sitting in the same room communicating, I wouldn't be able to see myself. I wouldn't see my hands moving. And as much as I'm concentrating on you on the screen, in the periphery, I can still see those things. So all of a sudden, you can't read others as well. And we see ourselves in full screen mode. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it can be kind of awkward sometimes too,
Yeah.
if you're seeing yourself all of the time. According to Stanford professor Jeremy Bailenson, he did this study on research on video conferencing, and he came up with the conclusion that it closely resembles having a conversation with someone just 2 feet in front of you. And American anthropologist also worked on some studies, Edward Hall, and he describes that 2-foot distance as an intimate distance, where lovemaking, comforting, protecting, and playing football or wrestling would occur with our friends and our family. We only feel comfortable within that space of letting our loved ones or close friends in. But if it comes down to it, also, like, that's the fighting space, right? If there's a physical fight, that would be within this 2 feet. So our bodies are naturally going to react to that experience. Video conferencing is invasive sometimes. It makes others feel physically close to you. It activates the fight or flight response, and that releases adrenaline and cortisol hormones, stress hormones. So getting this close to others in calls makes us feel on all the time. And we don't know when someone is looking at us, so there's no time to relax or switch off during a video call. Being on constantly makes video calls tiresome compared to regular social interactions. And then there's the added stress of turning your video off and wondering if it turned on by itself and not, and revealing yourself in a way that you didn't intend to.
Yeah. And finally, this one is so hard to read. You can appear less friendly. A 2014 study found that a delay of just 1.2 seconds can make people perceive you as less friendly. Oh, who knew delays were more than just annoying? They're actually damaging to those first impressions. And lag in a video call, we know it's inevitable, right? It happens. If we're in a real life scenario and you tell a funny joke, we laugh immediately. If there's bad news, we frown in empathy. If we interrupt someone speaking, we're supposed to stop immediately, right? But all of these social etiquettes get off kilter with just a tiny little delay. And these delays trigger a false sense of empathy, right? Like a lack of empathy, that we aren't fully present. We're not fully engaged with their emotions. And it makes for an unfriendly combination. But like we said, we're going to give tools and tips to counteract all of these. And as we get started, one question we get all the time is, okay, it's tough to build rapport digitally. We know we have these challenges, but what coaching delivery is best? Should I do telephonic coaching? Should I do text coaching? Is video coaching the best? Of course, the best format for health coaching sessions ultimately depends on the preference of the coach and the client, right? Each format has its own advantages and disadvantages, and what works for one coach and client may not work for another. What works for you as a coach may work differently with other clients, right? It's important for each coach and client to discuss and agree on the format that works best for them. However, our research does lead us to believe in the power of video coaching, as it humanizes that experience and builds rapport in ways that other mediums might struggle. So anecdotally, we've seen that retention rates are significantly higher for clients who engage in live sessions with their coach. So for that reason, we're going to focus on first impressions in the video chats as the first part here. So live sessions, how long does it take to make that first impression? Research shows that most people make a first impression within 7 seconds. It suggests that our brains form that first impression based on nonverbal cues, such as body language, appearance, before we even hear what the person has to say. The initial impression can then influence our subsequent interactions and opinions of the person. And actually, taking it one step further, experiments by Princeton researchers even suggest that people can make accurate judgments of others within 1/10 of a second. It's shown that people can accurately perceive certain traits such as intelligence, confidence, and trustworthiness from those first impressions. So we've all heard that first impressions matter, but most of us don't realize just how quickly they are formed. So we're going to chat through and supply you with evidence-based best practices that are going to boost your odds of making a positive first impression. So let's start with an easy one.
I imagine how I've impressed people in the first 1/10 of a second in the past. So let's set the stage. Lighting, one of the most important things for when we're doing a video call. We want to make sure that we're seen. And having good lighting can influence that first impression in the way that you want and intend to set with your clients. So you show up to your session with a clear screen, looking bright and attentive and present, and that can communicate to your client that you're approachable, engaged, and it gives them the impression that they can connect and relate with you right from the start. Alternatively, if you ever have been in a meeting, and I know we all have, where we're on a video call with someone and you can't see their face because the window behind them is so bright, or you're meeting with them and they were looking for a place to have more, more privacy. Maybe they're in the basement of their old dorm room, it looks like, it's setting the stage really, literally will look and feel like you want to communicate this nonverbal cue that you're a professional and you're present. So some tips and tricks for this are, one, to be sure that the lighting is directly in front of you, preferably a natural light or a window. And having a window or a light right behind you, again, can really kind of over glare. So you want to be careful with that. Have light from slightly above your screen, and that can illuminate naturally while eliminating casting shadows from under your face. We've all seen the person in Halloween using a flashlight. Really changes the structure of our face and the way that we appear. So we want to make sure that the light is coming from the front and above. And then be sure to center yourself in the frame so that you are the focal point and your client can connect directly with you. Those are just some of the ways, and we'll go into a few more.
Yeah, so now that your lighting is all taken care of, we need to check out all the things that we can see with that lighting, right? We've all experienced a time in the past where distractions happen in the background of a video call. And I don't know if you remember, there was this video that was circulating around the internet forever, and it was a news correspondent, and he was on a very large news channel doing an interview. And all of a sudden you see the little door in the back open, and here comes this child in the walker, like scooting in the background. And the poor guy is trying to concentrate and give this interview. And then you see the caretaker, I'm not sure if it was mom or someone else, but come crawling in, like army crawling to snatch the child back out and close the door. It happens as much as we plan. But what surrounds you impacts your client as well. So there are things we can do to set our space up for success, right? We can take a few moments to clean up our workspace and set ourselves up with a professional and clutter-free background, free from any kind of, it can be tough, right? Because we see the periphery of our room, but our clients just see this little box. So we want to check and see what they can see. You can add special touches like fresh flowers or a simple plant. Also be aware and consider that your client may not share your political views or your culture. So you want to consider keeping your background neutral and to ensure that safe space for them to be able to connect. Also, we want to think about images that may be religious, cultural, spiritual, political, like we talked about, or otherwise. They could be appropriate or not. So we need to know our clients, we need to know our message, we need to stay true to our professionalism and ethics. And while these type of images have potential to bring us closer together, if we share a common thread, we may not know that they could be a trigger, they could bring up emotions, they could send unintentional messages as well. So we want to make that call intentionally rather than unintentionally and be aware of what's in our background. Also, there is a science to it. So there's a best virtual background for professional work. And the hint is, it's not the ocean or palm trees. As much as we all love being on the beach, that's not the background that performed the best. So there was a research study that pitted a variety of different virtual backgrounds against each other. So the research gathered a male model and a female model and asked them to use different virtual backgrounds. Participants were then shown randomly the model with the different backgrounds, and they asked the participants to rate the models on their intelligence, their trustworthiness, their professionalism, and their approachability. So we're going to take a moment. Let's just kind of guess what you think, which background performed the best overall. The options were plants, art, a bookshelf, windows and natural light, candles, or a blank wall? The answer was plants. People were most likely to say a person looked more trustworthy, intelligent, and approachable when they were seated in front of plants on a video call. People who sat in front of a bookshelf background were rated the most professional, although also the least approachable. So it's been found that people might actually get distracted from the meeting when there's books in the background, curious to see what books you own. And then they're forming these impressions about you based on those books as well. So while a bookshelf might make someone seem more intelligent in that video call, that plan can backfire and land in them seeming less approachable. So when in doubt, you're setting up your background, try adding a plant or two.
And water them. I have this plant back here and I had forgotten to water it. Ashlee just recently noticed how vibrant it is. So let's talk about dress. And dressing professionally as a coach can look a little different than a normal professional dress that we would consider in the professional world. So while modeling is, we want to model our example of being a health coach, and we want to see that as a truly valuable part of being a wellness coach. We have integrity, and we know also that we're setting the stage for conversations that can be a little sensitive, vulnerable, and triggering for our clients. And we want to make sure that we take note of our appearance and we acknowledge the importance of how we show up in our sessions. So if you've just had a killer workout and you're feeling proud and you're sweaty and you're grinning from ear to ear, call your friends and family to share that accomplishment. We want to lead by example and be good role models, but we also have to be mindful of how we communicate that modeling. So showing up to a professional coaching call looks this way after a great workout. It could be a great way to communicate that you work out, but it could also communicate unintentionally a myriad of other messages, that your client might pick up on. Like, does my coach expect me to look like that? Or you might send intentional messages that can benefit that rapport, while these unintentional messages could disrupt the connection that you've worked so hard to build. So avoid unintentional messages by considering all of the ways that you might impact that dynamic. And where you can control behaviors and situations, do so. Dress is one of those ways. And we don't need to show up in a black tie or a suit, obviously, but we do want to take a moment. Yeah, although that could be fun. But we do want to take a moment to consider this message that we want to send. Being a health coach is being a professional. So take a moment to communicate your work ethic by dressing for the message that you want to send. And don't forget about your background, setting the mood. And don't hesitate to add a little humor or a nice touch. I have a personal little story that my health coach showed up to one of our sessions wearing a happy birthday crown on her head. And it was my birthday. So I felt really seen and acknowledged, and she remembered my birthday. It was a really special touch. So don't hesitate to add your own little personal touches while still staying professional.
That's so sweet. I love that.
It was really nice.
Another thing that we can do before getting into the session is a tech check, because tech, while it is wonderful and enables us to connect, it can also be something that can break that connection. So we want to take some time to silence all of our devices, our notifications, our pop-ups, the alerts, all those things that ding us throughout the day before you begin, so that you can be fully present and without distraction. I think we've all been in a session, and I'm going to give an example of a conversation Rowan and I had. We talk all the time, but we were in a video session together chatting, and all of a sudden I have an Apple Watch. It starts ding, ding, ding. Usually I'm really good about silencing my notifications. This was a family chat. It broke through that, and it was going crazy. And it was disruptive. So we had to call it out, and we'll kind of chat about how to do that in a little bit. But we want to be cautious of those things, because they do disrupt the conversation, even if we're not tuning in and attentive to it. Even if I'm not looking at my watch, just hearing that ding is there. So GIFs or GIFs, however you pronounce those, and those comments popping up and the incessant dinging can really interrupt the flow and the connection of the conversation. So we want to try to keep their space free from those interruptions, including poor connections due to bandwidth limitations. This is another place where we have an opportunity. We can close out all of the tabs that we're not using. We can shut off apps that may be running in the background. We can check our microphone, our camera, our internet connection, our battery supply, all of those little things, because there's nothing worse than rushing into a session and finding out that your laptop battery is about to die, or your internet connection is unstable, or your microphone did a weird thing where it and your webcam have reset and it's defaulted to the standard one. So like I have two screens, and I've had where my webcam that I'm looking at right now goes off, and all of a sudden, I'm looking to the side because that's where the camera is now. We want to check all of those things. So we want to be prepared with a pre-session sound, light, tech check, all those things. Is everything charged or plugged in? How's my audio? Do I need to go to a more quiet location because there's construction happening outside of my window? How's my internet connection? Well, I need to relocate, reboot. What do I need to do? We want to make sure all of those things are done well in advance of the session so we can show up fully. Which leads us to...
Right. When we want to show up fully, we want to be comfortable. And again, this whole thing comes back to creating that connection digitally. And when we are uncomfortable, that can show through the screen. So first, we want to get really clear about what will make us comfortable so that we can create comfortable spaces. And one of those things could be anti-glare glasses. When you're connecting online all day, your eyes can get fatigued, and you might want to be mindful, if you do wear anti-glare glasses, of what's reflected in the glare of your glasses. So your client can see what's on the screen in your reflection, and you might want to be mindful of that. If you were just checking your bank account balance and left the screen up, it's possible that you're sharing this sensitive information without even knowing it. Another consideration for glare is how it affects eye contact. And we do want to try to maintain eye contact. My glare glasses put the glare right where my eyes are. So we want to be really mindful of having that glare reduced. If you can, get anti-glare glasses, or try to move the light around you in a way that will support you to not have such a strong glare. It gives the sense that there's something between you and your client. And while that's totally true, there is a screen between you. Attempting to create the environment that comes as close as possible to real life is the goal. So some tips and tricks around this is to eliminate glare. It can be a tricky setup, but you can take the light not directly in front of you. Maybe it's above you, or you can use something to block direct light, like a shade. If you have the option of taking off your glasses, that's one solution. But for people who wear glasses, we usually wear them for a reason. And practice different setups. Check yourself out on the camera before a session begins to be sure that you're glare free and that you can make that direct eye contact, because it's really important for rapport. Yeah, and then what else do we have here? Have your forms ready. It's really important that you have, any documents, notes, pen, paper, whatever you need, have that all prepared and ready with you. Because if you have that right next to you and it's available or right on the screen that you need to pull it up, it'll be a lot easier to access. Ergonomics is another way to create comfort. And we could do a whole presentation, we probably will, on ergonomics. But for now, we just want to address this idea that if you have a clean and uncluttered workspace that's comfortable for you, you have support for your posture, your body is supported. If you're standing at a standing desk, please stand still. We've all been in those calls where someone's on a treadmill in a meeting and it's hard to contain that eye contact with them. So you can also set your chair to where you are most comfortable, and then use props to set up your workspace. Use boxes or books to prop up your computer, or you can always use additional supports, but we want to make sure that you are most comfortable, and then you adjust your computer screen to match that comfort. And finally, something else, just lift the mood for yourself. Make sure that you've set yourself up with a little bit of an environment that feels supportive and comfortable to you. So for some, that's lighting a candle or diffusing essential oils. For some, that's opening the window and getting some fresh air. You want to have a little bit of a pre-coaching ritual. Spend a few minutes doing this personal ritual. We've all learned, this 1 minute before the coaching call can be one of the most important moments. So just before your call, take 5 deep breaths, or if you're feeling a little low energy, dance to your favorite song. You can set a special stone or something near your computer to keep you present. And you might want to do different rituals for different situations. So decide for you what's the best way to start that coaching session, and take 1 minute before that session to really set yourself up for success. A quick mindfulness meditation could go a really long way in a coaching call. So take your personal ritual to the next level and create a space that you're intending to hold for your personal coaching sessions. And that can set you up with being really comfortable. And then it can also move you into the next piece around this, which is feeling energized and charged.
Yep. So your lighting is good, your background's beautiful, your tech is stable, you're comfortable, but you still feel a little tired, or maybe you're drained of all motivation to talk to people, or you're mentally running through a list of all the excuses to avoid the video call. You love coaching, but there are still times that this happens, right? So we might benefit from giving ourselves a social boost with social charging. So get those social juices flowing before the call even begins. So this can look a bunch of different ways, but it's socializing beforehand and relaxing your nerves so that you can feel more confident and just feel good going into the call. So social charging is really important if you're an introvert. Hi, that's me. I like to call myself an extroverted introvert, but still in that introvert category. So this is really important for us in that space. And especially even if you're an extrovert, if you haven't done much socializing recently, this can still be really good as well. So there's many different ways to prime our social skills before the call. So here are just some that Rowan and I enjoy. So one is to hang out with friends. Obviously, you have to schedule this one in advance. If you know you haven't gotten your social battery filled, make time to hang out with your friends ahead of having a series of coaching calls, because no one makes you happier than those you're closest to. So again, this one you have to plan in advance, but it can be really helpful. If you're a little shorter on time, things like watching a funny cat video. These are famous for a reason, right? Laughing always helps before a video call. You can also listen to your favorite tunes. Music has been proven to reduce the levels of cortisol and ease your stress. So turn on some Mozart, turn on some Taylor Swift, hashtag Swiftie for life, and blow the stress away, right? And actually, I laugh. My husband is a bigger Swiftie than I am, so our family loves it. You can also practice saying hi to strangers. So go to the grocery store, walk your dog, whatever, but along the way, say hi to at least 5 strangers to make yourself feel uber confident. And yes, that is research proven that it's great to say hi, and that'll get your social charge up. You can also get your blood pumping. A quick run outside or a trip to the gym can do wonders to calm your nerves. Just be sure to shower afterwards if you get super sweaty to make yourself ready professionally for appearance. You can also meditate a little, like Rowan was speaking about, or at least take a few deep breaths to center yourself before going in. And then we're ready to hop into the session.
You're giving away all your secrets. Taylor Swift is the key. I'm waiting for the evidence base on that. So let's think about the mirror effect, right? We're on a video call and we show up, and if rapport creates trust, how do we establish this? Well, we want to tune into our client to get on the same page. So we're in the call and we're paying attention to how they're feeling. We look at their body language from what we can see. We look at their word choice and we tune into their tone of voice. And then mirroring is essentially that you try to match that, but in a very authentic and subtle way. So if a client is depressed, talking softly, and you respond in this loud, gregarious way, it's going to feel a little unmatched and defensive, possibly. Similarly, if your client is upbeat and enthusiastic and they show up and they have tons of energy and you're having a hard day and you speak really low and don't show a lot of emotion, that person can feel unmatched to you. And there's a little bit of this like stickiness, right? We've all experienced that before. But part of establishing rapport is this mirroring of your client so they feel more at home with you. And it's like you get them, like you're on the same page. And it's almost like an intuitive feeling again, right? So mirroring with your client doesn't mean that you have to be disingenuous and wear different masks with different clients. And you're not changing yourself, but you establish rapport in a way that's really authentic. You're strong in your center and you read the room, right? You can kind of match to your client in really subtle ways that maybe they don't even notice, but it makes them feel safe and it makes them feel seen. And it's when we copy someone else's language to be in sync with their movements. Even subconsciously, we do this. When we really like someone, we do this with people, our friends and family. So just consider it as a way to appear on the same page And make the intention to do that in just a really subtle way. Excuse me. So in principle, like mirroring really works. In this digital platform, it can be a little complicated, right? It's a lot complicated actually on video calls. And that's because we can't mirror in normal ways. And some of the things that stop us from mirroring well is that we're only seeing this top half again. So unless we're standing, we've lost the ability to mirror our hips and legs and feet, and we don't get the subtle body language cues from our clients either. So shifting in their chair or crossing and uncrossing their legs could tell us that they're uncomfortable or anxious, but we miss those hidden cues and they miss ours. So we have to mirror what we can, and that's again what we can see. And then to go back to what Ashlee was saying, in real life, we do experience lag time and computer glitches and things that can happen. And the sudden micro movements of the body, we can pick up in split seconds in real life. But on a video call, this boils down to internet provider and the weather, the alignments of the planets, and Mercury is always in retrograde around here. So you can incorporate one of those many useful hand gestures as you speak to build rapport, but let your heart shine. And when our hands and our hearts are available and seen, we send this message that we're open to connection. There's actually, did you know that like hiding your palms activates a primitive thing in our brain that says, danger, danger, we can't trust that person. So open palms and open hearts leads to open communication. And we want our walls to come down as we communicate this openness with our clients. Finally, avoid face touching. It's so easy to do it. And I do it all the time, especially when my hair's down. So it's so easy to rest your elbows on your desk or touch your face. And when it comes to video calls, studies have shown that people tend to touch their face when they're nervous. So this can manifest itself in a variety of unsightly ways, tug your ears or scratch your nose. But it's an unintentional message that we're sending. So do try to be mindful of where your hands are. And if you want to mirror, stick with hand gestures most of the time and avoid face touching. And if your client uses their hands, start to use some of those expressions with them. Authentically though, because that can look a little weird if you're just copying everything that they do. And finally, use a head nod. I always nod my head in video calls, and this is a really wonderful way and an easy visual cue. You can do it on video and it says, I hear you, I understand, and I'm with you, and I'm following this conversation. I'm present. It's a great rapport builder, and it's easily done, and you don't interrupt the other person when you do it. It really shows that you're listening. Ashlee and I we've become head nod masters with each other.
Yes. And we've already talked about how the first few moments matter, right? So mirroring is great. We've set up everything for success with those first impressions. And the good news is our bodies also want to connect with other people. So when we log on to these video calls, or even when we have in-person sessions with someone, our bodies are producing two different things. Well, more than that, but we're going to focus on two. The first one is dopamine. This gets us excited, and it makes us motivated and makes us want to connect. So people who trigger dopamine activate the reward center in their prefrontal cortex, and it makes us feel like we're winning something, and we all want to win, right? And also we've got oxytocin. So when we feel bonded to someone, we produce this connection molecule, oxytocin, and it helps us become more in sync with our video call partner. So we don't have to be quite as conscious of a lot of these things. That's how, Rowan, you were talking about when we're really in sync with someone, we naturally mirror them. Well, oxytocin helps us with that. So in person, it's easy to create those chemicals. We hug, we shake hands, we fist bump, and then we make eye contact. But that's a little tougher virtually. So what do? Well, Science of People ran an experiment to find out. They wanted to know if just simply saying handshake or hug could produce the same effects as an actual hug or handshake. So the way they set up their experiment was they measured participants' immersion, or the emotional connection that people have with each other, through an app on the participants' smartwatches. They then had the participants view videos of them saying neutral statements or warm statements. So examples of the neutral statements were things like, hey, let's get started, or thanks so much for joining, or it's great to meet for a little while and catch up. I like your background. Pretty basic things like that. And then they had warm greetings that were used that were meant to trigger this physical response. So it was things like, I wish I could see you, but for now I'm going to send a virtual hug your way. Do you cheek kiss in your area of the world? If so, here's one for you. Or sending a virtual high five, or here's a virtual handshake. The results were that participants who watched the warm greetings had a 25% higher immersion response than the neutral greetings. That's a full standard deviation from the mean. Or in simple terms, it's a pretty significant difference, right? 25% is huge. So in other words, add warm words to your first few sentences to drastically increase rapport. And this is something super easy that we can even add as we go throughout the coaching relationship. Which then...
Yeah, just to touch a little bit on that. I mean, handshakes are out of the question when we're hopping on a video call. It's a little awkward to kind of put your hand, it's strange, right? So new word, virtual wave or virtual high five. And it can be really effective to hop on a video call and just right off the bat, give a virtual wave. And that does that thing. It opens our palms, it opens our heart, and gives that greeting. And it's a really nice way to show open hands and gaining trust. So we complement the conversation with a virtual wave or even a virtual high five. And I invite you to try it next time you're on a call and your video call partner has great news to share. Try saying something like, "Hey, Rob, that's amazing. High five." Or, "Hey, Jane," alternately, like some people can go through a lot of hard times and we want to show compassion. So if it's appropriate, if it seems like the right thing, of course, only you know your clients best. So do what's best for them. But you might want to say something like, "Wow, Jane, you are holding a lot of responsibility with caring for your aging parents, managing your family business. You have 9 kids and you're keeping up with all the laundry. Oh my goodness, I am just sending you a huge virtual hug." That can offer just this kindness and connection that really connects with them in a way that, like Ashlee said, can improve and increase that connection 25%.
Yeah.
Worth a try.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I would love someone like, "Oh, virtual hug. Yes, please."
I know.
It's cold here. I need a hug. Yes. So other things that we can do when we're in this session to help with rapport. And we'll touch on a little bit for the first session too, because that's really where we're working so hard to start building that rapport. But it sounds so simple, but how many of us forget to introduce ourselves, right? We know who we are. We're focused on the client and we're here and we want to get to know them. We might bypass this, but it's so important because it's that first step that we're taking to reach out and make that connection with someone new. It also gives them space to introduce themselves without feeling like they're being questioned. And it does allow you to establish what you'd like to be called as well, because sometimes our name on the screen doesn't always match the name that we want to be called, right? So this gives us an opportunity to introduce ourselves. We also want to use the client's name. Using someone's name shows that you're paying attention and it makes them feel valued and heard. It helps to build that rapport and strengthens the connection between you and the other person. Also, when you use someone's name, it helps you to remember them and their connection to you. And it helps make that conversation feel more personal and less formal. So that helps them put them at ease, helps them be more engaged in that conversation. It conveys that you're interested in who they are and what they have to say. And you guys know I love to read, but one of my favorite books on my shelf is How to Win Friends and Influence People. And Dale Carnegie has this great quote in there where he says, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language." So in other words, if you want to leave a positive impression on someone to make them feel noticed, important, and valued, we can simply say their name. We also could take an opportunity to get permission to take notes. So your client, if you're a note taker like I am, they're going to see you writing and they're going to wonder if you're engaged and paying attention or if you're writing your grocery list. They may also wonder if you're making notes in a negative way about them. That's just where our human brain is wired. So if we take just a moment and we ask their permission and explain why we're taking the notes, it can set a positive stage and show your commitment to the coaching relationship. And I usually will do this right at the beginning. We've introduced ourselves, we're getting started. I'll hold up, my pen or my pencil that I'm saying and just say, "Hey, I really would love to take notes during our session. It helps me keep track of everything that we talk about and keep track of future goals we may want to work on. Is that okay with you if I look down and take some notes while we're talking?" I've never had anyone tell me no, which, if they were uncomfortable with it, we absolutely would do something else. But I think it helps set that tone for the safety and security and letting them know that I'm still engaged and not making my grocery list. Also, it can be helpful to explain that you're in a safe, private space for them. So clients cannot see in the periphery of what's going on in our space, and they could be wondering who else is sharing it with you, who else can hear what they're saying. So it can be helpful to take that moment just to let them know that you're in a private space, or if you're utilizing headphones, maybe you're not in such a private space for whatever reason you can't be, but letting them know that you have headphones in, and that anything that they choose to share with you is only going to be heard by you. And that gives them that opportunity to open up. Also, we can take and get permission to share relevant information. So there may come a time in the coaching relationship we want to share resources. So instead of having to ask at every opportunity, it can be helpful to go ahead and ask preemptively during that first call. It also sets a really nice stage for setting the boundaries around scope and make any conversations that are necessary about scope or referrals easier later on. And it's super easy, just saying, hey, in the course of conversation, sometimes ideas pop up for resources or articles or TED Talks that I might want to share with you. Is it okay if I send those to you? And you've got that permission and you can proceed on. So many cool things we can do.
So many ideas. All right. Well, physical cues. And I'm going to kind of revisit this idea around eye contact. You might think that during virtual sessions, we're not relying as much on eye contact as in-person interactions. But the reality is that when you're connecting via video, your facial expressions and your eye contact are literally the only visual cues that you're working with, getting those signals and those subtle messages. So when you're aligned with your client and totally present, maintaining eye contact can feel a little forced on a screen, but over time it does get easier. And remember, they're not in the box. If they are in a box to the right or to the left, they're right in front of you. So you may want to move your screen around, center, minimize, explore options of how to make it look like they are in the center of your screen. And to make that best achieved, you can ask a friend to jump on a call with you. I've done this with Ashlee several times, just to test out the visuals. You can look at different parts of the screen and ask what's most natural. Is this natural? Does this feel right? And ask for their feedback. And finally, be aware of any facial expressions you might be inclined to make. Keeping in mind, your client is observing every move and every movement you make. So a subtle eye roll could break your connection with your client, while a soft smile or a head nod can show that you're with them and walking alongside with them and supporting them through their process towards health.
Yeah. And that ties in really nicely with monitoring that body language, the tone of voice, and just our general overall presence, right? That all ties in together, and they're in the background of their mind, taking in all that information.
Totally. It's there. I mean, there's so many things we can do to support them. Just a general presence, right?
Yeah. So we've made it through the session, right? We've set everything up for success. We have kept really good connection throughout. Let's talk about after the session. How do we keep that connection going? Well, there's a couple of different things. So one is expectations and delivery. So you may communicate in your intake forms and the contractual agreements about your expectations and the client's expectations for the coaching relationship. That's great to have that communication. Sharing them verbally, even in the beginning, can be a way to be sure you're both on the same page and all of that information is clarified. It helps not only to clarify things, but also offers an opportunity for questions, and it ensures that you've communicated the expectations and that they are acceptable to both parties, right? So I love a quote by Brene Brown. I'm giving away all the books that I've read, but Brene Brown says that expectations are premeditated resentments. And when we don't communicate those expectations, then we're setting ourselves up for these negative scenarios later. So communication is everything. So be clear with your clients about what they can expect up front, and that can save your relationship down the road. And every time we do what we say we're going to do, in the way that we say we're going to do it, we cast that vote for trustworthiness. Also, engagement. Engaging is an art, right? We can listen, ask, support, we can reflect all the time, but sometimes that engagement needs some additional pillars of support. So staying engaged requires consistently checking in, asking if there's something more important they want to focus on. And when that conversation is client-centered and client-led, their sense of engagement is naturally optimized. So we need to consider that cadence, the timing of text, the giving space for silence, reflection. How often did we commit to checking in? Did we ask the client what cadence they prefer? What was the expectations for engagement with the contract that we signed with that client? So we want to keep to those and make sure we're doing what we said we were going to do in the way we said we were going to do it. And even if we do all of that, sometimes we have clients who are engaged, responsive, and then poof, they're gone. Where did they go? Why did they disappear? It can be for a variety of reasons that we may or may not ever know, but sometimes the client stops responding. So it's naturally we start asking these questions in our head. Is it something we did? Are they okay? What happened? And it's normal to consider all of these things, especially if we're communicating via chat, because those messages can get misinterpreted. But chances are it's not. If we've done everything we said we were going to do in the way that we said we were going to do it, we're working on the rapport. Clients get busy. Maybe their priorities changed. Maybe they've experienced something in their life. Maybe it's as simple as they didn't reach a goal and there's some feelings of shame or insecurity and reaching out to you about that. It's where that rapport becomes so important, right? We want to counteract that. But we can engage them back into conversation, and we can use patience and some elements of curiosity in there. And we can reach out from anything from a gentle hello to how you're doing to even something more specific like, hi, Mary, I know life can get busy and time flies. I'd love to know how you're doing and check in. How can I best support you this week? You know your clients best when you have this wonderful rapport and you know what kind of connection they're looking for. So you can craft these messages in a very natural and authentic way, which brings us to chatting about those chat messages.
I love that you said, Ashlee, it's important to ask them the cadence that they prefer. Because when it comes to texting and chat, communication via text can be really tricky, like everything we've been talking about today. And simple communication with our coaching styles, using the skills that we've learned, the reflection, empathy, acknowledge, elicit, provide, elicit, all of those things in simplest terms can be the best way to chat coach. But overwhelming your thread with too much text can be a lot less effective than simple, short, engaging exchanges. And I have to work personally really hard on this one. I tend to be a little wordy. So we want to also use grammar and punctuation in a way that is showing our professionalism, and creating professional communication standards and best practices will support that connection and trust as you continue to build it with your clients. While they may curse, even if they do, avoid using any swear words, improper grammar, punctuation, any slang. You're not creating a friendship with them. So hold yourself accountable to staying in that professional boundary. And again, like we said before, holding video sessions after a workout or in your jammies is just not good visual punctuation. So moving, sometimes we want to use emojis or GIFs. And again, using that same idea around mirroring. If they do, maybe you can too. If they don't, try to avoid it until they do and really kind of follow their lead on that. Less is more. So using emojis sparingly or not at all is probably a better established rule of thumb until they've proven you different, proven otherwise. And if you've ever received a blow kisses emoji from your boss, you know how uncomfortable it might be. So consider that for them. If you haven't established the same meaning of an emoji, then probably don't use it. So in the case of professional conversations, especially in the very beginning of a coaching relationship, err on the side of no emojis. Just use professionalism over personality until you've established that rapport.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And lastly,
real awkward really fast.
yes. So that brings us right into our last point. Expect the unexpected. Have a plan, right? Our best laid plans will go awry and things can happen. So some of the common challenges that we see are things like internet connectivity or microphone video challenges, right? Have you ever been on a video call and then it's kind of like the old Verizon commercials where they're all, can you hear me now? Tech issues will happen, right? The first step in the plan, stay calm. If the tech issues are on your side, hopefully you've already gone through that tech check and you have a plan in place. So things like an alternative hotspot if your Wi-Fi goes down, alternative headphones in your desk drawer in case they die. And if it's on the client side, it can be really helpful to have a document that has a generalized plan for troubleshooting that you can have up and ready before the session begins. And so this way you can walk them through if they need to check their permissions for microphones and for sound, or if they need to use an alternative browser. And this way, right along with that, it's nice to make sure you have an alternative way to communicate with them. If they're hopping into a video session with you, have a chat pulled up. So whether that's part of your video conferencing or you've got a chat mechanism separately, pull that up so that you can make sure you can communicate with them if something's going wrong in the video sessions. And remember, you can always shift your coaching delivery. So if you're having a video session, you can always switch to doing a live text chat back and forth. Or you can reschedule the session if necessary, right? But we're here together so we can try to make it work too. Another thing that we often see is distractions. So we talked a little bit about this with the guy that had the kid that came in the background. They can happen in your home. They can happen in the client's home. We've got kids at home. We've got pets. There's repairmen. There's the Amazon delivery driver that comes. At some point, our best laid plans will falter and distraction's going to happen. It's okay. Don't be afraid to call it out and just say something simple like, I apologize. I have all of my notifications silenced, but the Amazon delivery driver just rang my doorbell. The package will wait, but I do apologize that the doorbell was distracting. And then move on, get right back to the coaching conversation. If something happens and you have to step away from your computer, be sure to tell your client why. Don't just say, 1 second, I'll be right back, and disappear. We want to say something like, I apologize, my dog is barking. Would it be okay with you if I stepped away for 20 seconds just to remove him from the room so that it's not distracting from our conversation? I want to be able to be fully present and focused on our conversation. Take care of the issue, come right back, right? Another one is concerns over privacy. Clients have a right to know what happens with their information. Be sure to be clear in your initial contract about the expectations for handling their information. How would their data be stored? Will the sessions be recorded? Who, if anyone, will have access to their information? Of course, I highly suggest having a HIPAA-compliant practice management platform. YourCoach is a fantastic one. It has all the tools that you need to handle this for you so that you can rest assured and you know that that information is secure, and your client also has the peace of mind that it's being secured and handled. And Rowan, I think you're going to share some tips for these last three.
Yeah, last three. And so having a plan for oversharing. We've all been there before. A client feels really comfortable with you and they're just going to unpack. So it could be a delicate balance of when to listen, when to let them just express, and when to redirect. And so have a plan for interrupting with grace. When you're coaching a client, it's important to maintain that delicate balance between listening and redirecting the conversation. And in certain situations, a client may share this additional information. And as a coach, it's our role to pull them back and handle these situations in a nice way, in a kind way, but also, giving them the nudge to come back. So when a client overshares, the first step could be to listen, acknowledge, repeat what they're saying, reflect. And this does help to build the trust and rapport. But when oversharing becomes too much or it's not relevant, it's time to redirect the conversation. So have a plan for this. And interrupting with grace can be a little awkward, but it can be something as simple as, hey, I'm sorry, if I may, what you said just there, that was really powerful. Can we focus on that statement for a minute? How might that impact your goals? How might that relate to what you're trying to do here? This way, you're interrupting, but you're pulling them back in a listening and supportive and gentle way to steer that conversation back to its intended purpose. Another thing that can come up, and Ashlee touched on this, is political stances. Establishing an expectation ahead of time can save you a world of trouble. And also photos, get clear, right? Set those guidelines and set those standards ahead of time. Trust me. If sharing pics is part of your expectation or your client's desire, designate what's appropriate ahead of time. So while clients on a weight loss journey might want to share pictures of their progress, be aware that nudes or lingerie photos could pose a bit of discomfort for both of you. Trust me, it happens. So be sure to say to your client, let them know sharing pictures of their journey is totally expected and encouraged, but ask them to kindly wear clothes so it doesn't get super awkward. Another bumpy road could be political stances. Like I said, Ashlee did kind of mention this. It's helpful to have a plan, put on a poker face, and bring just bring it all back to coaching. You can respond with something like, gosh, if they ask you something political, gosh, this is, we're here to focus on you and your health and wellness. I'd really prefer to stay focused on that since we have such little time together and this time together is so important. Would that be okay with you? Stay genuine, but try to have the poker face when it comes to things like that, because that could go into a whole nother world of conversations. And finally, very importantly, and I know this is the last moments of our presentation and we're running a little over, but I don't want to miss this part. It's so important. If you feel at any time that statements or actions are aggressive or violent or threatening to you, if anything is making you feel uncomfortable, be prepared to say something. And it's okay to be assertive. Let your client know, this is making me uncomfortable. You could say something like, this action or behavior or comment has made me uncomfortable, and I really value our relationship. I need to ask that you stop or ask that we talk about it. And then you can follow up with, if they're not willing to change, I'd be happy to find you another coach to work with. I can work with you together. We can work together. This might not be the best fit. And you're okay to say that. If it's truly abusive or aggressive, you may want to let them know the coaching relationship has come to an end, full stop. And these are all situations we hope never happens, but it is, again, better to be prepared than try to come up with something as it's happening. And last case scenario, we hope this never happens, but medical emergencies do happen. So it's hard to prepare for that. When it's happening is not the time to prepare to come up with a plan. So prepare for medical emergencies. And number one, assess the situation. Is everyone okay? Is everyone safe? Does anyone need to get to safety? Do I need to get to safety? Is there a consciousness thing happening? Are they conscious? Do you need to ask them to hang up and call 911 immediately? So be prepared for anything. And while we only have this small screen to connect, it's in that moment that we might be their lifeline, quite literally. So support them in the best way possible to get the help they need. And know the signs of a stroke, know the signs of a heart attack. It may be appropriate to ask a few questions, but encouraging them to stay on the phone with you is probably not the best solution. So encourage them in that moment to get the emergency help that they need, priority one. And if they share that they are at risk of harming themselves or others, you can let them know that you're obligated by law to notify the authorities of this. And it can be really uncomfortable, but coming back to rapport, when there's that trust and rapport in your relationship, these tricky, scary, awkward moments or uncomfortable truths can be really communicated in a way that's effective, appropriate, loving, and professional. So plan for the unexpected. You can never be too prepared when that arises. And if you haven't already, please check out Ashlee's presentation from back in September, Coaching in the Presence of Trauma. It's on the YouTube channel. She dives really deeply into this a bit more on how to address handles that are risk situations where someone has made a comment where they're at risk for harming themselves or others, and the steps to take to move forward from that. So on that note, I hope that we've covered everything that we needed to cover for you, and turn it back to you, Ashlee. Takeaways.
Yeah, we're our key takeaways, right? We covered so much, but three little points we just want to really emphasize is one, what you do before the session matters. How you show up sets the tone. So be sure to establish that pre-coaching ritual that's going to set you up for success. Two, rapport demands intention. It doesn't happen by accident. So pay attention to the details. Give them the time and attention they deserve. And of course, be prepared but flexible. Coaching is all about letting the client take the lead. We can prepare for a lot, but think of them as guardrails to stay between versus train tracks we have to follow exactly. You know your client best. You have all the tools and resources to set your coaching relationship up for success. So go out, coach. We know that health coaching is changing the world. It is changing clients' lives. And I don't say that lightly. We have all seen the power of health and wellness coaching. So we want you to be set up for success. So thank you guys so much for attending. If you aren't yet part of our coaching community, we would love to have you join us. We're passionate about health coaching and we're passionate about the health coaching revolution. So we would love to have you in our community of coaches. You can find us in the App Store and Google Play and from any web browser at YourCoach.Health. And also, if you're registered for a CEU ticket, we're going to be emailing the link for the quiz within the next 24 hours. So you'll get that via email. We're also going to have another CEU opportunity on February 28th around coaching and cardiovascular care at the heart of the matter. If you're part of our coaching community, of course, you always attend these at no cost. So we hope to see you there. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Bye, everyone.